Hey guys, today I'm going to explain what comes in tomorrow's quiz of biology. So let's get started. Okay, I'm going to begin with the plasma membrane structure and function. So inside the plasma membrane, there are phospholipids. Its structure is phosphate plus glycerol plus 2 fatty acids. And its function is that it makes the backbone of the cell membrane. ATP, in other words, adenosine triphosphate, is a modified RNA nucleotide. Its structure is adenine plus ribose plus 3 phosphates. Its function is energy carrier for the cell. And as for the cell membrane, it is a phospholipid bilayer with proteins. Bilayer means that there's two layers of phospholipids. Its function is that it controls what enters and leaves the cell. In doing so, it maintains homeostasis. So, for example, the cell membrane only, right now, he needs some glucose. So he will let the glucose come in. But today, he has a lot of sugar. So he will not let sugar come in, if you know what I mean. This is actually also called osmosis. Osmosis is the diffusion of water across a semipermeable membrane. Okay, I've drawn this in order for you to understand a little bit more. Here we have a lot of solute, and here we have very little amount of solute. In the large amount of solute, this is a hypertonic solution, and this is a hypotonic solution. When this is opened, what will happen? Well, the hypertonic will go to the hypotonic. Water moves that way. And this is called osmosis. Osmosis is, again, the diffusion of water across a semipermeable membrane. What is a semipermeable membrane? Okay, if we draw here, let's say that there's a semipermeable membrane here. Okay, this is very, very, very closed, but not entirely, because it lets the water molecules pass, but not the solution. So it's kind of like a filter. It allows the water to cross, but without the solute. So what happens in a cell placed in a hypotonic solution? Well, if you can see here, water moves from hyper to hypo. So what will happen? It will expand and explode. What happens when it is a hyper solution? The water leaves and the cell shrinks. What happens when a cell is placed in an isotonic solution? So that means there's the same solution with here and here. Well, there is no movement of water. Now let's talk about the transport across the cell membrane. There are 2 types of transports, passive and active. The only difference is that one has no energy required and another one, it has energy required. So think about when you are going up the stairs. You need energy to go up because you are against the flow of gravity. So inside our cells, we have water, and water goes from hypertonic to hypotonic. So it will always move to the left. But when it is an active transport, when they want to move to the right, they need energy. The 3 types of passive transports are simple diffusion, facilitated diffusion, and osmosis. And as for active transport, it is active transport. Endocytosis is when water is moving into the cell. And exo, you can think about exit, the word exit, which is moving out of the cell. The other two terms you do have to know is hydrophilic, which is you are attracted to the water, and hydrophobic, which is you are, on the contrary, phobic about water, okay? So when a substance is hydrophobic, it doesn't mesh with water. And then hydrophilic, it does get along with water. And also remember that an aqueous solution is water with dissolved substances. So almost never is water entirely pure. Even the water that we drink today, it is an aqueous solution with little substances. You cannot even see them, but they're there. So now let's talk about the cellular function. What is the importance of energy? Well, energy is used for many things. It is used for active transport, nerve conduction, muscle contraction, cell division, and synthesis of biomolecules. Okay, so let's talk about photosynthesis, cellular respiration, and fermentation. Photosynthesis, its purpose is to make glucose. It takes place in the chloroplast, and its reactants are sunlight, 6 waters, and 6 carbon dioxide. Its products becomes glucose plus 6 oxygen. For cellular respiration, its purpose is to break down glucose with oxygen to produce energy. It takes place in the mitochondria, and the reactants are glucose plus 6 oxygen. And products is 36 ATPs plus 6 water plus 6 carbon dioxide. For fermentation, its purpose is to break down glucose without oxygen to produce energy. It takes place in the cytoplasm, and its reactants are glucose, only glucose. Its products are 2 ATPs and 2 lactates. That is for lactate fermentation. And as for alcohol fermentation, because there are 2 types of fermentation, I'll get that in a minute, is 2 ATPs plus 2 alcohols plus 2 CO2s, aka carbon dioxide. Cellular respiration is also called aerobic respiration. This is when you have the oxygen you need and you produce what you need for your body. But fermentation, in other words, anaerobic respiration, is those times where you're like sprinting and you don't have any oxygen to really like breathe in, but your body's still working. So it produces 2 ATPs, which is the products, instead of 36 ATPs because of lack of oxygen, because we only have glucose as reactant. Anaerobic respiration can only last for about 5 minutes because it is pretty much like a stage. Body is kind of like alarmed and stuff, so you cannot really breathe. You're like sprinting, or like those heart attacks is because like you don't have any oxygen. But for a little, like several minutes, fermentation will occur in your body so that you don't die. But it is only for a few minutes. But yeah, like just to make it clear, the differences are that fermentation is without oxygen, it releases 2 ATPs, it takes place in the cytoplasm, and the final product are lactates. And for cellular respiration is with oxygen, and it releases 36 ATPs, and it takes place in the mitochondria, and its final product is 6 carbon dioxide and 6 waters. Now let's go with the 2 types of anaerobic respiration, aka fermentation. So there's lactate fermentation and there's alcohol fermentation. Lactate fermentation occurs only in animal cells, and alcohol fermentation occurs in yeasts and plant cells. So, the main reactant or reactants at the beginning of the first phase of the lactate of fermentation is glucose. Its final products are 2 lactates and final energy are 2 ATPs. Places where it occurs in the cytoplasm. For alcohol fermentation, you also have glucose as the main reactant, final product 2 alcohols and 2 carbon dioxides. Now, alcohol fermentation is, for example, how the cheese is made, how the bread is made, those type of things. The final energy is also 2 ATPs, and the places where it occurs is in the cytoplasm. Now, going back to photosynthesis, photosynthesis has 2 phases, the light phase and the dark phase. For the light phase, it happens in the thylakoid membrane. Energy is needed. Yes, energy is needed because the sun is where, like, the light phase is where the sun is up. And it captures light energy, which is chlorophyll. What are the main starting reactants? Sunlight and water. Final products are ATP, oxygen, and NADPH plus H, which is a taxi-carrying hydrogen. Why is it so important? Well, because it produces oxygen to breathe, and it produces some of the reactants for the dark phase. Now, as for the dark phase, there is also a photosynthesis that happens in the dark. Where does it happen? In the stroma. Is light energy needed? Of course not. What are the main reactants? ATP, NADPH plus H, but here is the difference. Instead of oxygen, it is carbon dioxide. Now, what are the final products? Glucose. This is how plants make glucose, through the dark phase. Why is it so important? Because it makes our food. And that is all for today. I hope this video did help, and well, yeah, good luck. Bye.